All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. This 11 a.m. breakout session is all about setting your business up for success and how to set that up. And again, we've got Rowena with Vallon Consulting here, and so we're excited to hear from her. And so we'll go through the slides and how to set your business up, and then again at the very end we have a question and answer time.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I am truly grateful for the opportunity to speak today about actually setting up your trucking business on the right track. All right, well, I'll start talking about Vallon Consulting. Vallon Consulting is a full-service trucking consulting company. We've been in business for about 4 years. I've specifically been in the transportation industry for close to 10 years now. I actually started on the passenger side of transportation, so everything from charter buses to luxury transportation, party buses, limousines, and that's really how I started to get into actual compliance of the transportation trucking side. So started off with that, and then in 2018, 2019, actually started getting into the trucking side of the business, and actually started off with a consulting company that specifically just handled all small businesses, no matter what industry. And I actually started focusing more so on trucking and transportation in 2019. And that was based off of a lot of experience that I actually handled with a company called Innovative Logistics Group, another trucking consulting company that is out of Charlotte. So I will go over a list of things today on how to actually get your company set up. A lot of times what I find from my clients' perspective is that they understand that they want to get into the trucking industry. They want to do a number of different things. They want to either be a broker, they want to be a carrier, they want to be a dispatcher, etc. And a lot of things that we see is that they do not have their company set up properly. And so this is kind of a brief presentation on just some minimal things that are needed in order to have your business set up successfully. One thing about Vallon Consulting, we consult trucking companies and any company actually in the transportation trucking industry, from whether you're starting off and you're starting off from scratch, or whether you're actually seasoned and you've been in the business for 20 years, or you're an owner operator that is trying to transition into going from, let's say, working for Snyder, and you're going into the realm of trying to own your own business. So we are actually, we represent a number of different clients, no matter where their journey is. So this is just, so starting a new trucking company, some of the information that I said earlier, first-time entrepreneurs really entering into the trucking industry for first time, they're really very complicated. So you've got the actual business side of things, Secretary of State, EIN, you got bank accounts, accounting, stuff like that. It's very general stuff that you will need for the actual to start up any business, whether you're a retail or you're a cupcake stand, or whether you're, a trucking company. The difference with a trucking company is that there are actually different certification and licenses that you'll actually need in order to be compliant. So there's compliant on the state side, and then there's compliance on the actual DOT and FMCSA side. So here we'll talk about a little bit of both. So one, any business that you start, you need to have a business plan. I recommend having a business plan even before you go and you apply for the LLC and your EIN or your corporation. You need to understand the basic foundation of what your business plan is going to be. You need to understand what your objectives are, what you're going to do to achieve these goals. And this is really important as you go to banks and start requesting loans for your business. So obviously every business plan is personalized to the company's owner, and this will depend on your mission and your vision. So you can't take somebody else's plan and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. It needs to be specifically based on what your goals are, what your objectives are, and then what you plan on doing to achieve these goals. And that is what you would present to a bank for instance, a business loan. Second thing, logo creation. Now, this is not mandatory. I know a lot of trucking companies don't actually have a logo. It's just their name. But a logo is an actual way to identify yourself that sets you apart from your competition. So when you're looking into doing your business plan and your logo creation, you need to start thinking about what it is that represents you as a company. And this is actually the first step to really building your brand and your identity as a company. Website creation. So a lot of times it can be as simple as a landing page, but you do want to start building an online presence, especially as you go into government contracts. You start doing any networking. People want to know your website is the first place that people look to get a little more understanding about your business and what you provide. This would be a great place to introduce yourself even more. So as you start to build your business and you start to build your credit in the industry, and also as financial institutions start to look at you and determine whether you're a good fit or you have a good standing to get that loan that you're requesting, this is a great place to start. One landing page giving very brief information is a great place to start, but website is always a great thing to have. So after you've done all that, that's when you go ahead and you file your business entity with the Secretary of State. So there's a number of different things that you can file for. So you can apply to be an LLC, a corporation, S Corp, C Corp. All of that depends on what you would actually need. So if you need more information on that, that would be on the IRS website. It gives you information on the different business structures, and then you can determine, what business, what filing you'd like to go with. What I will let you know is that in order to form your business, virtual addresses or PO boxes are not in compliance. So I know a lot of times when people start their trucking business, they want to go get a virtual address or a PO box or whatever. That is not in compliance with the FMCSA, or when you want to go get your plates for IRP. So just FYI. EIN, that is your federal tax ID number. This is how your business is identified. So this would be same thing as if, for instance, your social security number. So EIN, think of it as your social security number for your business. You'll open a business account. So one of the things that they'll tell you is that in order a specific business account, any bank of your choosing, this actually lets companies know that you're an actual business, and based on the IRS and any accountant will tell you that you're not an actual business until you actually have a business account. So that is important. You also want to make sure that you are separating your business account from your personal account. This is one of the most important things that I can talk about. We can talk about compliance all day. We can talk about, business structure, but having an accountant or being able to bookkeep your own records is very, very important, because this has to directly deal with the IRS. So any business, again, whether you're a cupcake stand or whether you were a trucking company, this is extremely important. Your bookkeeper or your accountant needs to know your financial status for your business, but you also need to understand where you stand as far as profitability. A good accountant will actually tell you where your budget what your budget should be, what your actual spend should be, how much you're spending on, let's say, advertising, and whether it's an overspend. So this is one of the first things that I tell business owners to go get someone who will be able to do your bookkeeping. DUNS number. DUNS number is for business credit. It is a unique number provided, kind of like an EIN. However, this helps you with your business credit reporting purposes. So this is optional. You do not actually have to go get a DUNS number, but it does help with your business credit. Funding. This is not requirement. You can absolutely pay cash for your trucks, for your for any equipment, for any business. However, I always suggest keeping your cash reserves and using funding from the bank. Now, a lot of people will go get a loan specifically for a truck. I usually recommend going and getting an actual business loan and a line of credit. That way, for instance, if you go to a bank and you say, hey, I need a business loan for $400K, you have money to go ahead and pay for your truck, any equipment, and then you've got some cash reserves for a rainy day. Because if anyone knows, trucking is extremely expensive, not only to get into, but to maintain as well. Then you'll go ahead and you'll apply for your DOT and MC number. If you are only doing in-state business, then you would just apply for your DOT. If you are doing business overstate, then you do your MC, and this is your operating authority that literally identifies the type of business that you'll operate. And then based on your application, there are a number of different regulations that you have to adhere to with the DOT and the FMCSA. Mind you that when you do apply for your DOT and your FMCSA, whether you pay someone or you are applying for it yourself, there is literally a agreement that you are acknowledging to adhere to the regulations. So ignorance of the rules does not absolve you from the responsibility to make sure you are keeping up with your safety and compliance as a company. That applies to brokers as well, and they are now changing the regulations where dispatchers will also have to adhere to different regulations as well. So just the FYI. Your BOC3 form. So when you apply for your MC, this MC is what you'll need in order to do business over state lines. There are two requirements in order for your business to go active. It is a BOC3 form and insurance, which I will cover very shortly. So the BOC3 form is otherwise known as designation of agents for service of process. Federal filing pretty much that says that, hey, you accept they will accept legal documents on behalf of your business. This is a requirement. For a broker, if you decide to become a broker, you can actually file a BOC3 on your own behalf. However, if you're a trucking company, you will need to find a service agent in order to do this. Your service agent, and what we found is that some people will use their service agent as the address of their business. This is incorrect, and that is not your business where you would park your truck or operate out of. So anytime when it comes to trucking, they want to know the address that you put on file is the actual address where you conduct business. This is where you keep your legal documents. This is where, you would even park your trucks. So if you have another parking address, they'll need to know that as well. So again, VOC3, and insurance. This is required. You will also need your UCR registration. This is the United Carrier Registration. It is a federally mandated program. So if you have trucks on the road or if you are a broker, you need to pay your annual registration fee. Now, as a broker, it's a one-time, and this is an annual fee. Usually for your broker, as a broker, it stays the same amount. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it is about $46. Now, for carriers, this is a little different. For carriers, your fee depends on the total number of vehicles that you have in your fleet. So and you don't pay additionally. For instance, if you started this year and you started off with one truck, you would pay, I think, $60 or something like that. And if next year you added 3 more trucks, you would pay a one-time fee for those 3 trucks. So it's not, you don't pay the difference if you start to add more trucks during the year. You just pay it once for your annual renewal fee, and it continues. So once you apply for your MC number, you'll do your BOC3 and you'll do your UCR. Your UCR is not, it is a requirement, but it is not a requirement for the FMCSA or DOT in order to get your authority active. Truck acquisition. This is obviously a big thing. So the reason why I'm not talking about insurance first is because you need a truck and you need a driver before you actually go get a quote for insurance. So insurance, the first thing they'll say is what's the VIN number for your truck, and they will base it, they will base your insurance quote on your driver and your truck. So truck acquisition, obviously this, if you're a trucking company wanting to be a motor carrier, this is literally one of the biggest purchases that you'll make as a business, right? Equipment acquisition, whether you're looking at the truck, you're looking at the trailer, is one of the most important decisions that you make, just because if you buy a lemon, you're going to end up spending so much money in maintenance and equipment that it can really affect not only your safety score, but you're also having a piece of equipment and asset that is draining you of funds versus actually making you money. So very important. I always say find an actual diesel mechanic that knows what they're doing and go find a good truck. You don't need to buy a brand new truck, but buying a good truck is actually important. I always usually suggest to not go for, the more expensive trucks like Volvo or Peterbilt. If you have the funds, great, but Peterbilt and Volvos are like Volvos and Mercedes in regular cars. I usually suggest, if you're going to go Kenworth, or Kenworth is a good truck. I'm not endorsing Kenworth, but just letting you know that stay away from the higher end trucks unless you can manage the maintenance. And if you do plan on financing the truck, expect to put at least 20% as a brand new business. And of course, your financing agreement will depend on your credit score and how much of a down payment you will need to put down. So one of the biggest things is insurance, and this is also another hefty this is another hefty thing that you'll actually end up having to spend every month. So if you do not have insurance, your authority will go to being inactive. Commercial insurance is very expensive, especially as a brand new company. But commercial insurance is essential. Obviously, it protects not only your business, but it protects you from potential accidents, damages, accidents being the number one thing. So there are minimal liability changes that change over time, and it really depends on different factors. It also depends on whether you are Insurance requirements depend also on a number of different things, whether you're a broker, you're a carrier, or you're just a simple business, or you're a motor carrier. So these are the different kinds of insurances. I'm not going to go into deep, but just kind of going over just minimal insurance coverage that you will need. So you will need liability insurance. Here's a list of 750,000 is usually general for general freight carriers. However, depending on the broker and depending on the shipper, a lot of times they will actually request a $1 million policy, and that will just depend on who you're talking to. So usually recommend going for the 1 million, especially starting off. But sometimes the insurance companies will tell you that you need to start off with 750,000, and that in order to get the 1 million, you'll need to show paperwork from the broker or the shipper that that's what their requirement is. Other insurances that you'll probably need to get as a trucking company: cargo insurance, bobtail, trailer interchange insurance, non-trucking liability insurance, physical damage insurance. So that also goes into the rate that the premium that you spend on insurance. All of these things are very similar to what you would need, for instance, if you were to even have a car. However, obviously trucking requires a little bit more insurance than a regular personal car, but same concept. ELD, this is an electronic locking device that is installed in your vehicle, and it automatically records driving times. There are plenty of different options to pick from. You know, you could go with Verizon. There are just a number of different ELD companies that sell ELDs. You just have to make sure that you have one installed in the vehicles. This actually helps with ensuring that your drivers are getting the rest they need, and if you have a good ELD, it will let you know when you are going over the hours of service regulations. So make sure that this is something that you get. Different companies have different prices. They also have different options. Usually your ELD provider will be able to provide you cameras that go inside the vehicle to show inside the cabin and outside. I won't kind of go down the line of why it's important to have cameras in the vehicle, but that is an option when you purchase your ELD device, and you will need an ELD in every vehicle that you have. Fuel cards, this is optional. You're not required to get a fuel card. However, getting fuel cards can help you save money at the pump. There are different discounts, and then if you have drivers, instead of sending them cash apps or whatever it is, you can actually get a company fuel card, and that is an easy way to track spending and your limit usage. And if you do end up having to go get an IFTA license, this is an easy way to be able to pull a record of all the fuel that has been purchased for your vehicles. Factoring is optional, but this is an easy way for carriers to get paid. Literally what happens is factoring takes the invoices of the loads you run, and then make sure that you get paid between 24 to 48 hours. That all depends on the factoring company that you choose. There are a number of different factoring companies: OTR, RTS, a number of them that you can pick. But if you don't use a factoring company, you end up having to wait 30 to 90 days before getting paid. So if you are a company that has a lot of funding and has a lot of cash, your cash flow is great, then factoring is not you don't need to use factoring, because they do, in order to do factoring, there is a fee. And that will depend also on your credit and their terms and conditions. IRP, this is your international registration plan. These are pretty much your plates. So if you have a commercial vehicle that crosses state lines with a gross weight of over 26,000 pounds or more, or has 3 or more axles, you need to get apportion plates. Apportion plates is the same thing as IRP. A lot of people think it's different. It's not. So every state has a different process. Every state has a different renewal requirement. So pretty much, if you have IRP, you will need an IFTA license. There are some, pretty much what it means is, instead of going to get a plate in, let's say, the state of North Carolina, and then paying taxes to go into every state as if you were to have an MC, you would get an IRP or apportion plates that literally says that you have tags to move in all the different states that you applied for. And it's an agreement between all the states that says, hey, you're allowed to move in all these different states for a certain tag that pays a portion of the taxes to all of the states that you'll go into. Apportion plates, the word. In order to get these plates, you will need proof of residency or proof of established business to get approved. Now, one of the things that they will check is to make sure that all of these addresses on the documents match, and you will need to make sure that it is an actual physical address. So for instance, they could ask you for a lease agreement as proof. They could ask you for a utility bill, which could be water, power, gas. Those are things that you cannot get from a virtual address or a PO box, which is what I kind of referenced to earlier. So making sure that you can show proof of residency or proof of established business is important. Now, I know a lot of people don't want to use their house because, you know, that is public knowledge, but either use a house or use, you know, actually go get a brick and mortar office. Other thing, 2290. 2290 is for vehicles that are specifically have a gross weight of 55,000 pounds or more. So for instance, some dualies or some dualies will not actually meet this requirement. So you need to make sure that you understand the gross weight of your vehicles. If you do have a semi, more than likely you will need to pay a 2290 form. Currently, the fee is $550 per year per truck. So if you have, let's say, 5 trucks, you would take $550 and you would pay $550 per times 5. Now, if, for instance, you purchase the vehicle after the tax period started, then you would have to pay a portion or whatever the difference is. So the actual tax period is from July 1st to June 30th. But if you, for instance, pay, got the vehicle in between that 6 months, you would pay probably the difference, which, you know, would probably be half of that prorated tax rate. So just an FYI, you do need to do this yearly. And if usually once you file your 2290, you will need to pay your fee to the IRS, usually by August. If the license, I kind of referenced that earlier, it is the fuel tax collection, and it is, again, another sharing agreement between the US states and Canada. If you have an IRP account, you will need an IFTA account as well. You will need to apply for both, and you will need to make sure you are staying in compliance. With IFTA, you need to report quarterly reports, and you'll need to pay whatever the taxes are due. So what it means is that you will take the miles that you ran for that quarter, you will take the fuel amount that you paid for that quarter, and you'll put it in, you'll file your report, and then sometimes you'll have to pay taxes, or sometimes you'll be owed money from the state. Different states have different measures, they have different reporting ways. Some states you have to actually fill out a paper report. Some will be able to, you'll be able to do it online. Or if you use a service like TruckLogics, you can actually do it through their system, and either they send it off for you, or you do it on, or they'll give you something that you can print off and mail off. So that's if the license. Make sure that you are filing quarterly, and you will have to continue doing that, or you will be out of compliance. One of the most important things is that with IFTA, you are subject to an IFTA audit. IFTA audit pretty much means that the Department of Revenue for your state comes and asks you for all particular states, and they want to see records of how you came to those numbers. So if you're running double books, this is not good for you. If you are not reporting the correct miles and fuel, and you are kind of putting in whatever numbers you decide you want to do, this an IFTA audit is really bad for you, because you can actually get fined thousands and thousands of dollars. So I had just side note, I had a client that was not running their books correctly, and when they had an IFTA audit, they ended up having to pay $20,000. Safe, when they came to me, they already had a lot of issues, and by the time they did their IFTA audit, they were asked to pay $20,000, and they ended up having to close their business because of it. FYI. SCAC, this is the standard carrier alpha code. This is optional, and this is very optional. So, but it is a requirement in order to do business with the US government. So if you're trying to get government contracts, you will need this code. And there is an application process and fee in order to do so. But this allows you to be able to get access to certain contracts if you're trying to go down that route. UI partnership, this is optional as well. If you're trying to do any business with doing intermodal business or drayage business or anything that gets you access to the port, this is very important to go ahead and do. This allows you to do business with, ocean carriers, railroad, anything, intermodal or drayage. This is an important application to do. Now, if you are a regular motor carrier and this is not what that's not the kind of business you're trying to do, then that is completely optional. You don't have to do that. These are additional state permits. If you're going into these states or you're doing business out of that state, you will need additional state permits. I'm not going to go into every state and what the requirements are, but different states require additional permits, and they impose highway taxes on top of your IFTA taxes. So give you an example: Kentucky, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Connecticut. And then if you are doing business out of Texas, you'll probably need to get a Texas DOT number. If you're out of California, you'll need a California number as well. On top of everything that you've now gotten with your business, you need to make sure that you have a complete driver qualification file. If you have a driver that has a CDL that has another list of requirements than if you had a non-CDL driver. One of the requirements is drug testing and being enrolled in a consortium. It's important. I believe that it is important that if you have any driver, whether CDL or non-CDL, you get them enrolled in a drug testing program, so that if anything happens to your vehicle, you can say, hey, at least I drug tested, this person was negative, no issues, and you are continuing to build that culture of making sure that safety is your #1 priority. But a full driver qualification, whether CDL or non-CDL, is a requirement, and as a compliance item, you need to make sure that you keep the file on record for 3 years after the last day of work. So for instance, if you fired your driver today, you must keep that DQF on file for at least 3 years after. And this is required whether you have non-CDL or CDL drivers as a business, just rule of thumb. Some of the decals that need to be included on your truck, obviously your company name, legal name and or DBA, your DOT number, your MC number. MC number is obviously optional if you don't have an MC. If you have a KYU number, if you have your IFTA stickers, that would need to be, make sure that you have current IFTA stickers. You do need to renew every year, and you will get IFTA stickers every year. Same thing with New York. If you're going into New York, same thing. And then obviously your gross weight rating. So everything that I spoke about is not a complete list of what is required to be compliant with the state or federal regulations. It's literally just a guide of first steps. Once you get all of those things, you still have a long way to go. So some of the solutions that we offer, we are a full service trucking consulting company. We offer consulting, compliance, authority setup, pretty much all the back end stuff that you'll need as a trucking company, driver recruiting, dispatching, ELD, fuel card factoring, financing, commercial trucking insurance, marketing and branding, truck and trailer acquisition, and then truck extended warranties. So pretty much everything under the roof that you would need as a trucking company and a little bit more.
So
Perfect.
Thank you so much. That was some really great information. And again, in my background of helping truckers set up their business, this was so spot on, and just some really great information. So thank you so much for doing this for us. And then if you do have questions and maybe they just come to you later or whatever that might be, you can reach out. Rowena, do you want to say your website address or your email?
Sure. VallonConsulting.com, VALLON consulting.com. And the company email would be info@VallonConsulting.com.
Perfect. All right. Awesome. So you can reach out directly to them with questions. And then if you'll go to the next slide, Rowena, this is our contact information. So if it's easier for you, if you have questions, you can also send them to us and we'll get them over to Vallon Consulting. So thank you again so much for joining us today. Next slide, please. Coming up at 1 p.m., we do have Dean Shreve with EFS WEX, and he's going to talk about the advantages of using a fuel card, and that's at 1 p.m. Eastern. So again, use the same link that you used to join here at 11, and we'll be back at 1 p.m. with Dean. So thank you so much, and thank you again, Rowena.
All right. Thanks, Amber.